Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The war had raged for decades, consuming entire star systems in its relentless march. Humanity, once a force to be reckoned with, was now on the brink of annihilation. The Earth Alliance had fought valiantly, but the Zorith, with their advanced technology and seemingly endless resources, had pushed them to the edge. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, the Alliance assembled a team of their most elite soldiers, the Void Walkers. Their mission: infiltrate Zora the Prime, the alien homeworld, and retrieve critical intelligence that could save humanity from extinction. Captain Sarah Reaper Kane stood on the deck of the stealth frigate Phantom, gazing out at the endless void of space. The weight of the mission pressed down on her, but she had learned to bear it. She had led her team through countless battles, each more perilous than the last. But this mission was different. This was the endgame. "We're approaching Zora the Prime," the ship's AI announced, its voice calm and emotionless. Reaper turned to face her team. Lieutenant Jack "Ghost" Miller, their infiltration expert, was checking his gear with practiced precision. Sergeant Maya "Hawk" Lawson, the sniper, was cleaning her rifle, her eyes focused and intense. Corporal Ethan "Brick" Rodriguez, the heavy weapons specialist, was loading a fresh clip into his massive assault cannon. And tech specialist Jason "Circuit" Lee was hunched over his datapad, fingers flying as he ran last-minute diagnostics on their equipment. Reaper took a deep breath. "All right, team, this is it. We've been through hell together, and we've come out on top every time. But this mission, this is the one that counts. We get in, we get the intel, and we get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Understood?" A chorus of affirmatives met her words, and she nodded. "Good. Let's move." The Phantom slipped through the Zorith defenses like a shadow, its cloaking technology rendering it invisible to the enemy's sensors. The planet loomed ahead, a dark, foreboding sphere that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Zora the Prime was no ordinary world. The atmosphere was toxic, the landscape alien and hostile. It was a place designed to kill anything that didn't belong. The team suited up in specialized combat armor, designed to withstand the planet's harsh conditions. Reaper's helmet sealed with a hiss, and the HUD flickered to life, displaying vital signs, ammunition counts, and environmental data. She checked her team's status. Everything was green. The Phantom deployed a dropship, and the Void Walkers descended to the surface. The ride was tense, silent. No one spoke. They all knew what was at stake. As the dropship touched down, the ramp lowered, and they stepped into the unknown. Zora the Prime was a nightmare. The ground was covered in a thick, pulsating layer of organic material that seemed to shift and writhe underfoot. The sky was a sickly green, with clouds that boiled and twisted as if alive. Towering structures made of a strange, chitinous substance loomed in the distance, their shapes twisted and unnatural. "Stay sharp," Reaper ordered. "We don't know what we're walking into." They moved as one, their training and experience guiding them through the alien terrain. Ghost led the way, his movements silent and precise. Hawk covered the rear, her rifle at the ready, eyes scanning for any sign of danger. Circuit monitored the surroundings, his HUD displaying a constant stream of data, while Brick kept his cannon primed, ready to unleash hell at a moment's notice. They hadn't gone far when the first attack came. A shriek pierced the air, and alien creatures burst from the ground, their bodies a nightmarish blend of flesh and metal. They moved with terrifying speed, their claws slicing through the air as they charged the team. "Engage!" Reaper shouted, raising her rifle and opening fire. The Void Walkers reacted instantly, each member falling into their practiced roles. Hawk's sniper rifle barked, dropping one of the creatures with a precise shot to the head. Brick's cannon roared, spraying a hail of explosive rounds that tore through the attackers. Ghost was a blur, his twin blades flashing as he sliced through the enemy ranks, while Circuit hacked into the creature's systems, disrupting their coordination. The battle was fierce but brief. The Void Walkers were the best of the best, and they fought with a lethal efficiency born of countless battles. Within minutes, the ground was littered with the smoking remains of the alien attackers. "Everyone okay?" Reaper called out, scanning her team. "Minor damage to my suit, nothing serious," Brick grunted, his voice tinged with satisfaction. "He lived for moments like these." "Same here," Ghost added, wiping his blades clean. "But we're burning through ammo faster than expected. We'll need to be careful." Reaper nodded. "Let's keep moving. We've still got a long way to go." The team pressed on, navigating the twisted landscape with a mixture of caution and determination. The Zorith base was heavily fortified, surrounded by a sprawling complex of structures that pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly light. Circuit hacked into the security systems, disabling alarms and opening doors as they made their way deeper into the heart of the enemy stronghold. Inside the base, the air was thick with the hum of alien machinery. The walls were lined with glowing conduits that pulsed in time with a strange, rhythmic vibration that seemed to permeate everything. The Void Walkers moved in silence, their senses on high alert. As they approached the central chamber, Circuit paused, his brow furrowing as he studied the data on his HUD. "There's something wrong here," he muttered, tapping his data pad. "The security is too light. It's almost like they want us to get inside." "Trap?" Hawk whispered, her voice tense. "Most likely," Reaper replied, her eyes narrowing. "But we don't have a choice. We need that intel. Stay sharp." They entered the central chamber, and there, in the center, was the catalyst. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a massive, crystalline structure that pulsed with an inner light. Circuit approached it cautiously, his fingers dancing across his datapad as he interfaced with the alien technology. "It's an AI core," Circuit said, his voice tinged with awe. "This thing, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. If we can extract the data, it could change the course of the war." Reaper nodded, her grip tightening on her rifle. "Do it. We'll cover you." As Circuit worked, Ghost moved to the edge of the chamber, his eyes scanning the shadows. He had a bad feeling, a sense of unease that he couldn't shake. Something was wrong. "Very wrong." "Almost got it," Circuit muttered, his fingers flying across the datapad. Suddenly, he froze, his eyes widening in shock. "Oh no. What is it?" Reaper demanded, her heart pounding. "This isn't just an AI core," Circuit said, his voice shaking. "There's a subroutine in here, it's a failsafe. The Zorith, they're not just at war with us. They're preparing for something much worse. Something that could wipe out all life in the galaxy." Before Reaper could respond, Ghost stiffened, his body convulsing as if struck by an unseen force. His eyes rolled back, and for a moment, he stood frozen. Then, with a guttural snarl, he lunged at Reaper, his blades flashing. Reaper reacted instinctively, her training kicking in as she blocked the attack and shoved him back. "Ghost! What the hell are you doing?" But Ghost's eyes were glazed, unfocused. He was no longer in control. The alien technology had taken hold of him, turning him against his own team. Hawk fired a shot, but Ghost moved with unnatural speed, dodging the bullet and closing the distance between them. He struck out at Hawk, but she deflected the blow with the butt of her rifle. Brick stepped forward, his cannon aimed squarely at Ghost, but hesitated, unsure if he could bring himself to fire on his comrade. "Ghost, snap out of it!" Reaper shouted, trying to reach the man she had fought alongside for so many years. But it was no use. The alien influence had taken him completely. Ghost lunged at Reaper again, and this time, she didn't hesitate. With a swift, precise movement, she sidestepped his attack and drove her combat knife into his side. Ghost staggered, his eyes clearing for a brief moment as he looked at Reaper with a mixture of shock and sorrow. "Sorry," he whispered, blood bubbling from his lips. Then, he collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Reaper stood over his body, her heart heavy. She had just killed one of her own. But there was no time to grieve. They still had a mission to complete. Brick, how bad are you hit? Reaper asked, her voice tight with emotion. Just a scratch, Brick grunted, though the pain in his voice betrayed the severity of his wounds. I can still fight. Good. We're getting out of here. Circuit, did you get the data? Yeah, Circuit replied, his voice shaky. But we need to move. Now. The base was on high alert. Alarms blared, and the sound of approaching enemy forces echoed through the corridors. The Voidwalkers moved quickly, their previous stealth replaced by a desperate urgency. They fought their way through wave after wave of alien soldiers, the Zorith throwing everything they had at the intruders. Brick was slowing down, his injuries taking their toll, but he refused to give in. He kept firing, his cannon spitting out explosive rounds that tore through the enemy ranks. But it was clear he wasn't going to make it.at the entrance to the extraction point. Brick stopped, turning to face the oncoming horde. You go, he said, his voice resolute. I'll cover you. Brick, no. Hawk shouted, but Brick shook his head. Someone's gotta stay behind, and I'm the one slowing us down. Get the hell out of here, and finish the mission. Reaper hesitated, every instinct screaming at her to refuse. But she knew Brick was right. We'll see you on the other side, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Brick grinned, a fierce, determined expression. Damn right you will. The remaining Voidwalkers sprinted toward the extraction point as Brick unleashed a final barrage of fire, holding the line against the advancing Zorith. They reached the ship, and as the ramp closed behind them, Reaper glanced back, her heart breaking as she saw Brick overwhelmed by the enemy. But he had given them the time they needed. The ship lifted off, and they sped away from Zora the Prime, the catalyst secured in the cargo hold. The mission was a success, but the cost had been high. Back on Earth, General Steele greeted them with a mix of pride and sorrow. You did it, he said, his voice gruff. You brought back the intel. This could change everything. Reaper nodded, but the victory felt hollow. She had lost 2 of her team, and the knowledge of the greater threat weighed heavily on her mind. What now? She asked, her voice flat. Now, we prepare, Steele replied. Because what you found, it's only the beginning. Reaper exchanged a look with Hawk and Circuit. They had been through hell, but they were still standing. And they would keep fighting, no matter what. As they left the debriefing room, Reaper knew one thing for certain. The war was far from over, and the Voidwalkers would be needed again. They were humanity's last, best hope against the darkness that was coming. The Voidwalkers would walk the void once more. The weight of the mission lingered as Reaper led Hawk and Circuit down the sterile corridors of the Earth Alliance Command. The walls hummed with the low, constant buzz of machinery, a reminder that their world was held together by the fragile threads of technology and the relentless determination of those who fought to protect it. Reaper's thoughts were heavy with the losses they had endured, but she pushed them aside. There was still work to be done. General Steele had made it clear that what they had uncovered on Zora the Prime was just the beginning. The catalyst, now securely stored in a highly classified facility, was being analyzed by the Alliance's top scientists. The data was complex, far beyond anything they had encountered before, and it would take time to fully understand the implications. But Reaper knew that time was a luxury they didn't have. As they entered the briefing room, Steele was waiting for them, his expression as unreadable as ever. The general was a man who had seen more battles than most could imagine, his face lined with the scars of countless wars. He nodded as they took their seats, his gaze lingering on the empty chairs that once belonged to Ghost and Brick. We've started analyzing the catalyst, Steele began, his voice low and measured. What you've brought back is unprecedented. This AI core contains data on an alien threat far more advanced than the Zorith. We don't know much yet, but from what we've gathered, this species is capable of wiping out entire civilizations in a matter of days. The Zorith were preparing for their arrival, and now we have to do the same. Reaper felt a chill run down her spine. The Zorith had been formidable enough, the thought of an even greater threat was almost too much to bear. But there was no room for fear in her line of work. "What's our next move?" she asked, her voice steady. Steele leaned forward, his eyes hard. "We need more information. The catalyst contains a star map with coordinates leading to an outpost in a remote sector of space, far beyond any territory we've charted. That outpost might hold the key to understanding who or what we're dealing with. I want you to take a small team and investigate." Reaper nodded, already running through potential scenarios in her mind. "Who do we have available?" "I'm assigning you Lieutenant Mason and Sergeant Collins from Bravo Team," Steele replied. "They're good soldiers, reliable. And I'm also sending Lieutenant Vickers, one of our top xenobiologists. We don't know what you'll encounter out there, and her expertise could prove invaluable." Reaper considered this. It wasn't her usual team, but she trusted Steele's judgment. "When do we leave?" "Immediately," Steele said, standing. "The Phantom is being prepped as we speak. This mission is top priority. We can't afford any delays." Reaper exchanged a glance with Hawk and Circuit. They had just returned from one hellish mission, and now they were heading straight into another. But this was the life they had chosen. There was no turning back. The journey to the remote sector was long, the void of space stretching endlessly before them. The team spent the time preparing, going over mission parameters, and running drills. Lieutenant Mason was a no-nonsense soldier, quiet but capable, with a reputation for getting the job done. Sergeant Collins was younger, brash but skilled, his enthusiasm tempered by Mason's calm presence. Lieutenant Vickers was the wild card, a scientist thrust into a military operation, but she seemed eager to prove her worth. As they approached the coordinates, Reaper called the team to the briefing room. The star map displayed on the holoscreen showed the location of the outpost, a small, barren moon orbiting a gas giant in a system on the fringes of the galaxy. "We'll be landing here," Reaper said, pointing to a spot on the moon's surface. "The outpost is underground, likely heavily fortified. We don't know what kind of defenses we'll be facing, so we'll need to be ready for anything. Vickers, you'll stay with Circuit and monitor the environment. If there's anything out of the ordinary, I want to know immediately." Vickers nodded, her expression serious. "Understood." Mason and Collins exchanged a look, their silent communication a testament to their experience as a team. Reaper knew she could count on them to follow orders without hesitation. The Phantom descended to the moon's surface with practiced precision, its landing smooth despite the rough terrain. The atmosphere was thin, the sky a perpetual twilight, casting an eerie glow over the barren landscape. The team exited the ship, their suits adjusting to the low gravity and thin air. The entrance to the outpost was well concealed, but Circuit quickly located it using the catalyst's data. The door was reinforced, but it yielded to Circuit's hacking skills, and soon they were inside, descending into the darkness of the underground facility. The outpost was cold and silent, the air heavy with the scent of machinery long dormant. The walls were lined with alien technology, its purpose unclear but clearly advanced. Reaper led the way, her rifle at the ready, every sense on high alert. They moved cautiously through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Vickers studied the alien technology with a mixture of awe and trepidation, her datapad capturing every detail. Circuit monitored the systems, ensuring they weren't about to trigger any alarms or traps. As they reached the central chamber, the tension in the air was palpable. The chamber was massive, filled with rows of strange, cylindrical pods, each one emitting a faint, pulsating light. Vickers moved closer, her eyes wide with fascination. "They're stasis pods," she whispered. "But what's inside them?" Mason and Collins took up defensive positions, their weapons trained on the pods. Reaper approached one of the pods cautiously, her hand hovering over the controls. "Circuit, can you access the system? Find out what we're dealing with here." Circuit nodded, connecting his datapad to the alien console. His fingers flew over the controls as he bypassed the security protocols, and soon the data began to flow. "These pods," they're holding something. I can't get a clear read, but it's some kind of biological material. Whatever it is, it's dormant for now. Vickers leaned in, studying the readings. It's in perfect stasis. This technology, it's centuries ahead of anything we have. If we could, her words were cut off by a sudden, low hum that filled the chamber. The pods began to glow more brightly, their lights pulsing in a rapid, rhythmic pattern. Circuit's eyes widened in alarm. They're activating. We need to shut this down, now. Reaper didn't hesitate. Vickers, help Circuit shut down the system. Mason, Collins, cover them. As Vickers and Circuit worked frantically to disable the activation sequence, the hum grew louder, and the pods began to open, one by one. The air grew thick with a strange energy, and a sense of dread settled over the team. The first pod opened with a hiss, releasing a cloud of vapor. Inside was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen, a mass of shifting, translucent tendrils that moved with unnatural fluidity. It emitted a low, vibrating sound that seemed to resonate deep within their minds, causing a sharp pain behind their eyes. Mason opened fire, his bullets tearing through the creature, but it barely seemed to notice. It lashed out with one of its tendrils, striking Mason and sending him crashing into the wall with bone-shattering force. "Fall back!" Reaper shouted, her voice barely audible over the growing cacophony. "We need to regroup." The team retreated, firing as they went, but the creatures were relentless, emerging from the pods in greater numbers. Vickers managed to shut down the activation sequence, but it was too late. The creatures were fully awake, and they were angry. They fought their way back to the entrance, Mason limping from his injuries, Collins providing cover fire. The creatures followed, their movements eerily coordinated, as if driven by a single, malevolent intelligence. As they reached the surface, Circuit activated the Phantom's defense systems, unleashing a barrage of missiles that struck the entrance, collapsing it in a cloud of dust and debris. But the creatures were still coming, surging through the wreckage with terrifying speed. "We need to get off this rock, now!" Collins shouted, firing his last clip into the advancing horde. The team boarded the Phantom, and Reaper gave the order to lift off. The ship rose into the sky, leaving the creatures behind, but the threat was far from over. The data they had retrieved was incomplete, the mission a partial success at best. As the Phantom sped away from the moon, Reaper knew they had only scratched the surface of the true danger that lurked in the dark corners of the galaxy. The catalyst had revealed a glimpse of a horror beyond comprehension, and the Voidwalkers were once again at the forefront of humanity's fight for survival, but they were soldiers, and they would continue to fight, no matter the cost. The Voidwalkers would walk the void until their last breath, for there was no other choice. The fate of humanity depended on it.